Welcome back. Today's video is going to be a pretty fun one for you YouTube viewers. 58 minutes ago, approximately an hour ago, Uncle Tony's Garage did a follow up on the piston pin frictional knurling practices done by Smokey Eunuch. Now, obviously, I created a video upon those lines and discussed the angularity of the connecting rod and the spinning of the piston pin. Throughout the entire history of this channel, you could say that we've been troublemakers. Okay, so as an analogy to explain what troublemaking does to the topics, I'm going to use this baseball bat as an example. Now, you can go back throughout the history of baseball and look at the troublemakers and the attention that the Major League Baseball organization got when they had troublemakers. Now, approximately a week ago, here in Wisconsin, we did our final goodbyes to the legend of Bob Uecker. And during his broadcast and his farewell tribute, one of the players, George Brett, was on the panel for questioning and sharing some of the afterthoughts of Bob Uecker. Now, if any of you are a fan of baseball whatsoever, you realize that George Brett, if you go to the reels right now on YouTube and look up the greatest fights or the most controversy in baseball, George Brett's interaction after hitting a ball and being called out, continued on to a fight, drew a lot of attention to the Kansas City Royals baseball club and to Major League Baseball. So it is not always the good news, the individuals that are getting into the Hall of Fame, that draw attention to the topic. It's normally the negative things that are shared within the sport or within the information. What's the old saying? No bad publicity is bad for views. That's exactly what we're going to be getting into today. With Uncle Tony's Garage bringing up this topic, Daniel Powell creating another video with his observation and opinions about it. In the automotive performance industry, social media has really gained a lot of attention through reviews. So many of you that tune into channels like, what's it called? Oh, sorry. Project Farm. You're interested on the products that he's testing, whether it be car waxes to drills to vice grips, so on and so forth, and he puts it in a scientific way that you can choose to spend your money in the most efficient way to just get the job done, or you can actually spend your money on something that's going to last a long time and perform to its expectancies. For many years, he also did oil testing between Pennzoil, Kendall, and Quaker State, so on and so forth. And the most real-world testing that he can provide, so lower temperatures, below zero, to races of the oil and the viscosity, how it can drain off, baking them into coffee machines to see which one loses or evaporates the water content within oil. All of that is there to promote the best products there is. It's not necessarily there to identify which one is the worst. Okay, Project Farm tries to give an equal opportunity for each one of the products to actually be advertised. Project Farm also reaches out to his viewers for any leading information or a product that they would like to see. When it comes to the performance industry, the naysayers, those that question the industry, are allowing the industry to become better. Okay, so in these videos, sometimes we're talking about a topic that we're sharing from our point of view of things that were tested or magazine articles that were written on it. But social media and YouTube channels have allowed certain products to get a negative point of view. So whether you're leaning up against a car with a sticker of the company behind you as you're calling out their components, so maybe having a banner behind them, stating who they're connected with within the groups of Facebook, or excuse me, within YouTube. The troublemakers are actually causing the manufacturers to realize what they need to do with quality control or within recalls. Once again, majority of the recalls come from reports either from insurance companies that are having to replace it, or to vehicles breaking down, the service shops that are having to deal with it. It's causing the manufacturers to retract the products that they're putting out there to fix them. When you are talking about technology in the muscle car industry, or in the race car industry, if you want to call it that, individuals that are doing it themselves now, you have the opportunity to read some of the articles or see the publications through YouTube channels of what works, what doesn't, where the problems are, how to fix them, or how to address any adjustment you might need with your project. So product development, a lot of it used to be where they would go into a test session. Some of the smaller groups within the company, let's say General Motors, for instance, and they had to test a product for a certain amount of time before they actually put it into production, installed it into a vehicle, and then the consumer was able to use it. And the feedback from their consumers allow them to change the project or change the automobile according to the wishes of the consumer. Okay, so let's pick something just kind of out of the air here. Let's pick the Dodge Charger. Okay, from 1966 through most modern day off the showroom floor Dodge Chargers. What brought the entire interest of modern day muscle cars to duplicate or replicate the muscle cars of yesteryear? It is the interest from the public. Now, even though those automobiles may have had trouble back in the day where they were not sold in the highest numbers, or they had maintenance issues, individuals still remember having those automobiles, and they would like to have them later in life to duplicate and reminisce of what they used to drive years ago. So the Dodge Charger went through multiple body and chassis engine combinations throughout the years. Approximately every 4 years, they would change and adopt it to whatever the consumers were looking for. What would run on Sunday and sell on Monday? They were reacting to the public's feedback. Now, on these channels for the last 4 to 5 years, Uncle Tony's Garage and the multitude of other YouTube channels out there, we've called out individual components within engines, whether it be piston pin offsets to flat tappet lifters to roller lifters, oils, carburetors. Every component within an automobile has been called out. And whether it's for the negative or positive, the manufacturers or those in the aftermarket that might be supplying a replacement or producing parts to fix those things, it is the feedback that YouTube channels are providing a research and development for the manufacturers. So they don't no longer require a special group of individuals in a laboratory to tell the manufacturer, okay, we have this product and it's working good, we can now install it into something. They're going to know from past practices and past mechanics to tell whether or not the product was good or so on and so forth. But they threw in a different variable over the last 30 years with moving manufacturing of the components overseas. Cheaper labor rates, less EAP restrictions, the components can be made cheaper for the American consumer. But that is taking away the years of experience with parts being faulty. They are going over, having lower quality control, so on and so forth. And as we're receiving them now in the United States, no matter what component or product it is, we're able to share our input on these products, whether they're good or worth the money, so on and so forth. So social media has taken the place of the research and development and quality control. Now, I'm going to use another example for your handheld Bing Bangs. Okay. Another manufacturer that was fairly well known within Sig Sauer, that created pistols that were fairly advanced. The most recent sale of their firearm is now being recalled because of a flaw within the design to where they're not truly in a safe position within use. Okay, the firing pin can still fall. The safety is not blocking the firing pin from actually making contact with the cartridge, to the point where the feedback from the individuals that purchased the firearm have caused a complete recall of that firearm. Now, did they have research and development teams that designed it? Did they have engineers? Absolutely. And they probably even copied or used parts from older models that were more functional and more safe, but they skipped maybe something within a process. Again, getting most of those components machined overseas, the quality has gone down, or the engineering of the components have been adjusted to lower the actual cost within the components that make up the firearm. Lo and behold, here we are to the point where the parts are actually causing harm to the consumers, whether it be automobile parts to firearms, so on and so forth. That is why a lot of manufacturing has to come back to the United States. Quality control is huge. And within the United States, within the world of the internet, we're able to give reviews on products prior to it making it to the masses. For example, the Edelbrock VRS carburetor that just came out a few years ago. There was individuals on YouTube that received copies of it prior to it being distributed out to the masses, whether it be the parts suppliers of Jegs or Summit. Individuals were able to get their hands on it prior to most of the public. They were all able to provide a review of the product on a running engine and see the performance, so on and so forth. It was the responses that they got back from those videos that allowed them to say, hey, there's our research and development, people like it, now let's make it mass production and let's get it out to the public. Social media is actually saving manufacturers money. Okay, so they are able to test the products separate from a lab, and before it actually hits full bore within the market, they can have individuals review the products to see the kind of feedback and need that's out there. So with the most recent video covering the piston knurling and if it makes contact with the cylinder walls or not, yes, it's a great debate. And with everything that's been covered at least once or twice per year for the last 5 years, some YouTube content controversy has led to a better product. So yes, let's have the debate. Let's see the proof that you have to sustain your opinions. Now, take it to the full extent of looking at what the engineers probably did when that part was manufactured. Okay, so if we go back to the piston pins and skirts and piston pin offset and so on and so forth, in a lab, those products were already used. An example, another YouTube channel shared something about the Edsel engines. Back in the day, in order for Edsel to actually put an engine in one of their automobiles, it had to go through a strenuous test. More strenuous than any of the other manufacturers. So their engines might not have been a high horsepower or a NASCAR engine chosen for performance, but they would have to sustain 6,000 RPM for hours, even days of sustained RPM and hold together before the Edsel name was ever put on the engine. Where Chevrolet, so on and so forth, they might, put it on a dyno and spin it. They might, give it to racers so they can, modify it and put it within the racing syndicates. And if they were able to qualify or finish races, okay, we have components that will last from the abuse of racing. So we can put it in a street car and we know it's gonna last a long time and have the durability. Edsel did that before it ever was placed into an automobile. So even through our history, realizing what older manufacturers did of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, we're figuring out that the manufacturers have to spend more time in research and development and quality control. And it's from the feedback of reviewers on YouTube or social media that's forcing them to do it. So these debates, these discussions and arguments, if you want to put it that way, is allowing the manufacturers to grab a hold of some information that is not covered in their labs. Okay, so even individuals testing oils that might have a multi-million-dollar facility, testing things down to the micro magnification, what you see in the real world is not necessarily a direction of what is being tested within a lab or the results are getting in the lab. Okay, so even Project Farm is a useful tool to the oil manufacturer, saying, okay, we tested against our competition and we lost, or we're doing something good because our oil lasted through all of these different tests. Now, is Project Farm getting a kickback from any of the oil manufacturers in order to keep testing their products? Okay, are any YouTube channels receiving experimental equipment to be able to test before they release it out to the public? Absolutely. So social media has become the new science lab for products. Anything that's being introduced as an experimental piece or something that has to go through testing, giving it to YouTube creators, getting it reviewed, getting it tested, allows them to adjust, find the mistakes, so on and so forth. And being one of the troublemakers on YouTube, basically calling out the different components that are failing, it is leading to a better product for everyone. So with that, I'm going to let you go, a fairly shorter video. Daniel Powell's asked, basically say, this is all the information we need to know. No, it's not. Okay. Because in my previous video talking about the angularity of the connecting rod, the rolling of the piston pins from a floating or a pressed pin, all of that information, you're pretty much not finding anyplace else on YouTube. The manufacturers know about it. They have for a while, and they're producing products with a higher quality today than what they did 40, 50 years ago. More modern day engines are able to make more power because of what they've learned throughout the decades. Now, if we can only get to the point where we're manufacturing gasoline engines and building with enough durability that a person can go out and spend the asking price, the window take price of vehicles and expect them to last 10 years, that's another thing that we have to get into. For example, how many individuals bought a new vehicle during the 1990s, and if you were in a salt belt, because of the way the stamping of the body or the way that the body mounts onto the frame, would have rust issues immediately. The manufacturers took those results, replaced some of those components with plastic that doesn't rust, and they're getting a longer life expectancy out of the vehicles. And it reduces the amount of metal that we have to use within our nation for automobile construction. So there's less being turned into recycling that is metal. We're not sending as many ships overseas to where our competitors can melt it down, create automobiles once again. We're able to be self-sufficient and do it right here in the United States. So whether it's the local politics or manufacturing processes, it needs to come back to the United States. It will benefit us all, no matter what industry you're in. So, as a troublemaker, you can be appreciated for standing out, raising a ruckus about some of the things, asking questions, and debating with other individuals brings you to a more final outcome that is beneficial to more individuals. Have a good one.